Alright, hello everyone, and welcome to Demise's new guy, weapons guide. I'm hoping that this is going to be a document that can be used for quite a while. It's updated for 0.19, so this is like, what, late August 2016, so it might not be relevant by the time you watch this, but it probably will. It will stay quite relevant because this is fairly accurate. Okay, so let's get started. So let's talk about a general overview of what I'm going to be doing today. So I'm going to be talking about what types of weapons are good, so with what the strengths and weaknesses of each type are. I'm going to be talking about the brands, possibly. I'm going to do some brief brand discussion, but I'm going to be doing that in a separate video, probably tomorrow or another day. And what kind of weapon do we want to have? So let's get started with short blades. So first of all, let's take a look at the bottom. As you can see, I've neatly categorized everything into the how good is this weapon for late game. Uh, it's like a sliding scale. So the red ones are the ones you definitely don't want to use, and the green ones are the ones you do want to use. And I've kind of positioned them in a scale of like how good they are. So the more right they are, the better, and the more left they are, the worse they are. So yeah. So short blades consist of daggers, short swords, rapiers, and quick blades. So that's all displayed on the screen. And they're exactly what it says on the tin. They're short blades. So the pros of the short blade are they can be used to stab stuff, which is pretty important. Short blades get the big stabbing bonuses. All other weapons do not. So stabbing is where you attack an enemy that is sleeping, paralyzed, confused, or otherwise incapacitated, and it does bonus damage. In addition, they tend to have very low minimum delay, and they are very cheap to train. So the heaviest one is the rapier, which runs, which is 14 skill to get to min delay. Daggers take 12. Quick blades take 10, maybe, I forget, and short blades take 12, 14, something. 12 to 14, I don't know. But look, it's pretty low. Basically, if you get 14, you're never going to need to train short blades again. So the cons of short blades, they have very low damage. The base damage is incredibly low. They tend to be dead end if you can't find a quick blade. So basically, quick blades are there's two types of short blade users: stabbers, which won't really be using short blades for raw damage, and quick blade users who tend to kind of suck at dealing damage. Either way, it's not really that great for killing stuff in Zot. Like, using a dagger or a quick blade against an orb of fire is a very painful thing, if you've ever imagined it. Rapiers do slightly better at that, but they are bad at stabbing and just generally not incredibly good compared to most long blades. And I say it's a dead end base type because you can't actually go into a heavier thing if you wanted to. The only thing you can hope for is a quick blade, and basically you get the best possible brand, the best possible weapon, the dagger, from the start of the game, and uh, yeah, upgrading it doesn't really increase the damage by much anyway. So in terms of brands, you generally want to do stuff that takes for short blades. You want to have brands that take advantage of the low swing speed, such as electricity, distortion, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Like electricity, distortion, and kind of anti-magic, but those ones aren't as good. So generally speaking, short blades aren't amazing, but they're good for stabbers. Stealth builds. Long blades are the heavier versions of short blades, and they've recently in 0.19 been uh, updated, I suppose, to have riposte. So riposting is where every time an enemy attacks you and they miss, you have a 50% chance of retaliating and attacking them back for free. This is on top of your regular attack, so it basically increases your damage by like some 30%. So riposte is sick, and there's a lot of high-end blades here. So as you can see, oh, I didn't do the introduction. Well, let's go from left to right then, I guess. So on the left you have falchions, then long blades, scimitars in the middle, great swords, which is two-handed, double swords, which is one-handed, triple sword, which is two-handed, and demon blade, which is one-handed. Um, Initially, I was going to put double sword up here. I just forgot to. So they're roughly all equivalent. Triple swords are really good, but very rare. So I don't. I would actually put it less somewhere over here somewhere because you can't really guarantee getting it unless you pick. Even if you pick Trog, you might not even get it. Anyway, so there's multiple high-end blades, meaning that by the time you get to Zot, you're almost always going to have at least one good weapon, compared to, say, short blades, where you'll only get a quick blade if you're really lucky. But the only cons are they're fairly rare. The good ones are really fairly rare, especially in the early game. So you're going to have a hard time finding a good longsword or longsword, falchion, or scimitar early in the game because they're just not that common, I guess. Especially because you need to think about, and this is an especially important problem because these swords are edged, so they will actually cut off Hydra heads and force Hydras to grow more heads. So what that means is basically if you don't find flaming, you're screwed in the early game. It's going to be really tough for you to get by through Hydras, and yeah. So you got to try to find flaming in the early game, which is a definite con of long blades. It's almost what I think about from the start of the game. I'm always looking for some flaming weapon or some way to kill a Hydra if I'm going long blades. And another con that's a little bit less, I suppose, obvious is that nowadays long blades is slightly more dodgy than before. So you want to make good use of your riposte. You want to have fairly decent dodge, which means that it excludes most plate armor builds for quite. Well, you can still use it, but the damage is just going to be lower because the base damage is lowered to compensate for the increase in damage for riposte. So it's a bit different now, and generally you're going to want to play like Merfolk, High Elf, Draconian, maybe Gargoyle if you feel a bit. Nah, not really. I don't know. Like stuff like that to make best use of your high evade and long blades. So the good brands for long blades are generally electrocution and I guess ice, I suppose, because long blades have pretty good base damage. And actually, no, that might be less now. I guess electrocution will always be the best one, and anti-magic, of course. But yeah, there's not really any bad ones that go with long blades, other than protection, of course. But that's protection. Let's move on. Maces and flails. So there's a lot of maces and flails, and that's one of the pros. Early on, it's incredibly common. So let's go from the left to the right. I'm going to use my mouse here. I apologize. I know I hate using the mouse, but hey. So here you can see the club. I put it like out of frame because it's that bad. You never want to use it. This is talking mostly about late game, by the way. None of this stuff should ever be used. So you got clubs, maces, whips, flails, and then dire flails and morning stars. I put these kind of like in the middle. They're not the worst possible thing, but they're pretty bad. Just because this one has low base damage and low swing speed, but it's two-handed. On top of that, you got great maces, which is pretty good. Oh, these are morning stars and flails, dire flails, by the way. Sorry. Giant club and giant spike club are really good, but they're only accessible to a couple of races, i.e., trolls and ogres. Demon whips and morning stars are incredibly good. They're all at the top. I'm not going to be counting the Demon Blade and Trishula and Blessed Scourge because they don't really count for the late game anyway. So the pros of this of the Mace and Flail set is that they're really common to find in the early game. You're almost always going to find a good brand: Flail of Crushing or Protection, Whip of Electrocution, Ice, Flaming, whatever. You're going to find something good. They have solid damage. Almost all of the late game stuff has really good damage. They're not edged, so you're never going to have to worry about Hydras, other than the fact that they're Hydras and they do a lot of damage. And yeah, there's a good variety of them in the early game. And they're also fairly easy to come by. As you can see, I put the Great Mace up here. It's actually somewhere over here somewhere, but I was kind of drunk when I made this. But hey, you almost always find at least one Flail of Crushing, and you can easily enchant that up to +9, and it's really strong. Because Vault Wardens and double-headed ogres, Ettins, etc. will all hold Great Maces at some point. The only cons, I guess, from a role-playing perspective, they're pretty bland. They don't have any particular features like stabbing or riposte, but they do their job well, so I can't really complain. The only other con that I'd have to say is that brands on pickup tend to be kind of garbage. You tend to get protection. I think they're weighted towards protection and crushing, which makes them significantly worse than, say, for example, electricity or something. But you could still get something good, so that's not really that much of a con. Maces and Flails don't really have much of a weakness. As always, the good brands are, I guess, electricity and anti-magic. And if you're really pushing for it, I guess ice. Nah. Axes. So this is a personal favorite of mine because, as you know, I am a Minotaur Berserker player. Got a lot of speedruns with axes. So the pros of the axe is that the cleave is absolutely ridiculous. So axes can swing. Every time you hit something with an axe, 75% of the damage is also. The 75% of your base damage is. Not sure if it's. No, it's not the base. It's actually on top of the brand as well. But all that damage is also. A little bit of that damage is also applied to every single enemy around you. So basically, you're hitting everything around you constantly, which makes it pretty ridiculous for killing big groups of enemies. It has high impact, so a lot of these axes do a lot of damage. You'll notice that they provide you with. They're really good for new players because they tend to fix a lot of your positioning errors. If you mess up your position, you can just cleave your way out of it half the time because you're killing everything around you. Rather than with long blades, maces, and flails, you have to play kind of conservatively slightly because if you take on more than one enemy at once, you will just be hitting one of them and riposte not as much. With riposte long blades not so much, but you know what I mean. You're basically going to take more damage than you're putting out. Whereas with axes, it's kind of an even trade. And also, you're guaranteed a battle axe. You will never go a game without a battle axe because Frost Giants drop them. Battle axes are freezing, and that's a perfectly winnable game, late game weapon, and it's really good. The cons of this is that it's edged, so early on in the game, your war axe and your hand axe needs to be flaming, or else it's going to cut off Hydra heads and grow them back. To lop the Hydra heads off and cauterize them, you need to have flaming. It's really important to get. So that's one consideration you have to do. If you're playing with Trog, which you generally are if you're playing with axes, you might be able to get away with some Berserk or Brother in Arms shenanigans, but that's for another day. As you can see here, I completely forgot to talk about the brand type, the actual base weapon types. So you got hand axe on the left over here, war axe. These are terrible. Broad axe, which is the best one-handed weapon for axes, but it's still nah. Battle axe, which is top tier. Execution axe, which is doubly top tier. The only con is executioner's axes without having without having Trog or Aquara, you're basically not going to get an executioner's axe unless you're willing to dump a couple of acquirement scrolls into getting weapons. But if you are with Trog and Aquara, you will get an executioner's axe, and it'll be pretty sick. Alright, finally, Polearms. The pros, they have reach, so Polearms, you can press V or tab, depending on how you want to do it, if you're fast or slow, and your polearm will actually reach one tile over, so you effectively have 2 tiles of reach when you're hitting stuff. That has a couple of implications. First of all, you can poke over summons. Second of all, you can hit stuff before they come to you. And are there any other things? Oh yeah, and third, you can poke over deep water and lava and such, and you can kill stuff without them being able to hit you back. It's pretty good. They're also good because some of these ones, which is namely the Spear and Trident and Demon Trident, are not edged. However, the Scythe, Halberd, Glaive, and Bardiche are all edged, so if you want to fight Hydras, you're going to need Flaming for any of these. But generally what I do is, I have a Halberd in the in lair, and then I go and get a Trident as backup so I can use it to fight a Hydra. And also a pro is the fact that there's a Demon Trident, which is one of the better weapons in the game. All the Demon weapons are pretty much top tier. There's no real Demon weapon that sucks. They're all really amazing one-handers. They're actually the best one-handers in the game, mostly because they're kind of the only ones. So the cons are obviously, if they're not edged sometimes, they're also sometimes edged, so you gotta pay attention to that. And the damage is fairly low, so I personally don't like polearms, but they're alright. Usually, if I want to play polearms, I'll just play like Demon Spawn, Merfolk, you know, those guys, those kind of guys. They tend to be kind of bland for me at least, and they don't really offer that much of a positional advantage most of the time. But as you can see, there's a lot of like garbage ones. So the scythe you'll never ever use. The halberd is trash. Trident is trash. Spear is trash. Glaive is kind of okay. And the Bardish and the Demon Trident are fairly rare, so you might actually go games without finding these. And if you're stuck with a Trident as a one-hander, you're basically screwed. So at the very least, try to go for a Glaive. If you find a Demon Trident, use a Demon Trident. It's pretty good. So the last one that not really anyone talks about is Staves, and this is kind of funny. The scale. So the pros of having Staves is you can get an electric larger tang, you can get a speed larger tang, and you can get a vampiric larger tang. So that's the three pros of larger tang. I mean, Staves. Basically the same thing. You're never going to use quarterstaff for the late game. Larger tangs are fast two-handed weapons that are edged. The only problem is that, yeah, so larger tang, okay, there actually is no problem. Larger tangs are two-handed weapons that only require 14 min delay to hit. 14 skill in Staves to hit min delay. And they hit fast and they hit hard. It's really cheap to get these larger tangs, but they're damn rare to find. Quarter Staves, on the other hand, aren't edged, have about the same min delay, and suck. The only cons of Staves is that they're edge weapons, and you generally won't have time to find them to start with. You might be able to start Gladiator and go Quarterstaff, but like, like if you're gonna go Gladiator or Fighter or whatever gives you Quarterstaff these days, probably Gladiator. If you're gonna do that, you might as well just pick like another top tier weapon, like one of these ones, like a Trident or a War Axe or a Flail or even a Longsword. These are all good weapons. Oh, I messed up. Hey, there we go. That was interesting. Anyway, that about wraps it up for today's New Guy Corner. I don't really know how to do this this format still. Like I said, this is only my third time ever doing a non-gameplay video, other than the audio podcasts, which don't really count because I'm normally just talking shit. So this is like the aside section where like the main message is over, guys. So if you liked it, please leave a like, subscribe, maybe if you feel like it. We're doing some cool stuff, daily content. It's pretty good. Other than that, yeah, for all you guys that know exactly what the channel's about, there's going to be more of this. Right now, I haven't hit Greater Player, or my third Greater Player, on this channel yet. So I'm kind of taking a break because I'm a bit tilted off that last game. Spoiler. So yeah, like I'm going to probably do a couple of these interspersed around with random series, and hopefully I will be able to build a compendium of knowledge by which to give to you people, so everyone can learn. If you're getting people into Crawl, I'm going to be releasing a video probably very soon about just a general primer for Crawl. Hopefully, I'm going to try to script that one a little bit more than this one. This one was unscripted. I'm going to try to script it and get a little bit of a taste of Crawl. I want to give people with no knowledge of how Crawl works a general overview and hopefully get them into it. So yeah, if you guys can support me on that one, I would be very happy. So thanks for watching, and I will see you all next time.